Dick Johnson and John Bower broke into the 58s. Peter Brock and Tony Longhurst are split by just 1/100th of a second, and the Turbo Nissans have evenly split the 8 Ford Sierras competing today. Behind Fury, it's Moffat, Bond, Jones and Neville Crichton rounds out the top 10.
And as predicted, we've had another short, sharp shower here at Wanneroo. The track is wet. The rain has eased off for the moment, but, well, it's going to create maybe a bit of mayhem at the first corner, Neil Crompton.
Indeed, and shades of 1988. Remember the deluge last year? It certainly seems as though the weather's a bit more stable this time, thankfully, but we're in for a wet race, initially at least. And Dick Johnson, the man they're all chasing, car number 17 on the front row of the grid alongside him, his teammate John Bower. They're the series leaders after 3 rounds. Peter Brock, Tony Longhurst on row 2. The Nissans right behind row 3. Jim Richards and George Fury. Then Alan Moffat, Colin Bond, Brad Jones, Neville Crichton. And a couple of new Commodores on the trail, driven by Tim Slako and Alf Barbagello. That's John Bower. Very quick on day 1 of qualifying on Friday. There's Peter Brock, carrying 7's race cam, just getting the grid totally stable.
10 seconds and they'll be away. Round 4 at the Shell Australian Championship.
Flag drops. Dick Johnson makes an initial good jump. Tony Longhurst is moving very quickly but takes to the grass, loses some ground along the way, so it's now Johnson. Peter Brock, an excellent start to second. John Bower to third. Brock nails Bower. The car didn't turn in properly and Bower goes right out wide. He's behind Neville Crichton now, and he's copped Chris Lambden as well in the Commodore. Brad Jones goes around the outside and Alan Moffat trying to scramble through as well. But Dick Johnson, then Jim Richards, then Peter Brock, Tony Longhurst, George Fury, Colin Bond, Neville Crichton and Tim Slako with John Bower behind.
Well, we predicted there might be a little trouble at the first corner. It's exactly the way it's happened. And bad luck to John Bower.
Tremendous start by Jim Richards, who covered his ground pretty quickly, and Peter Brock working hard at the moment to try and keep Tony Longhurst out of the equation. And Dick Johnson, after hesitating at the start, was able to really get the power to the ground and pull away from all the drama. He's now got one of the best wet weather drivers in the world hot on his tail. And the Nissan Turbo Skyline that's been working well here all week is right in the spray of that car. Brock still third, covering his ground, doesn't want Longhurst to make a plunge on the inside. Then Bond, Fury, Neville Crichton, John Bower. Look at the Brock car trying to put power to the road as they end lap number 1.
Pulls up alongside Longhurst as they go into the bottom corner. You can see them there coming into picture. Longhurst on the inside, holds the line and keeps third spot for the moment.
Well, Tony was pushing hard, really exploring the edges of adhesion in these conditions. And look at Richards here doing exactly the same. So Brock back to 4th, then Bond, then Fury. Brock working very hard. Seems to be losing ground a little bit behind Longhurst at the moment. Richo's giving this thing a decent fling. We have the pleasure of some additional comments today, and a Team Nissan driver who joins the circus this time next week, Mark Scaife. Welcome to Sevens Motorsport. The way things are going here at the moment, your blokes are looking pretty good.
Yeah, Jimmy's trying very hard, isn't he?
He's got the car wound up and is certainly renowned for his wet weather driving skills, but he's got Tony Longhurst closing this gap rapidly at the moment. Tony certainly looks aggressive.
Unfortunately, Mark, this is where Jim loses out, I guess, is on these 2 very long straights, isn't it?
Yes, it's very much Sierra territory in lots of ways, isn't it, Gary?
Could be a change on for second here. Yep, race cam shows the story. And through on the inside goes Tony Longhurst.
Johnson getting away up front, clear leader now. Longhurst moving into second place ahead of Jim Richards. Peter Brock is in 4th, then Colin Bond, George Fury, John Bower is next, making up some ground ahead of Alan Moffat, and Neville Crichton and Tim Slako.
News has come through that Tim Slako has in fact been penalised 1 minute for jumping the start, so that makes life pretty difficult for him in only a 50-minute race. Jim Richards carrying 7's race cam, chasing Tony Longhurst, then Peter Brock defending from Colin Bond and George Fury.
Bond looks like he's anxious to go a bit quicker too.
Dunlop tyres on the first 2 cars. Bridgestone on the 3rd car. Now Colin Bond slithering through. Will he make it out the other side? Peter was able to take a much tighter line. He's trying to drive to the inside. Bondi switches. Collins in a better position when he gets to the end of the pit straight. Jim certainly still sliding around a lot in that car at the moment.
Well, you know, talking about wet weather drivers, Bond's one of the best as well, so he'd be quite at home out there at the moment. He's in 4th spot in the race, Colin Bond. Johnson leads, Longhurst, Richards, Bond. Oh. They get very unstable when you put the power down in those Sierras.
About 500 horsepower plus in some cases, they say, and it's certainly an explosive package on this track.
I bet the boys are wishing they turned the boost down now.
Yeah, the last thing they need at the moment, Mark's more horsepower. Perfect throttle control from Jim Richards as he just slides coming out of that right-hander, but he's certainly at a power deficit to the Ford Sierra. Now Colin Bond moves up 1 slot.
A very good effort from Bond.
Oh, dear me. That is a good effort to hang on to that.
That would have increased Richards' heart rate by a few beats, no doubt, while he tried to figure out what to do about the slithering Colin Bond. I'd say, if anything, Mark, maybe the Yokohama wets, which I think have been relatively untried this year, perhaps not with as much grip as Jim would like at the moment. He certainly seems to be at a much greater deficit than would normally be the case to the Sierras.
Yeah, I think you're right, Neil. Today, the Yokohamas we've previously had in dry conditions have been super. But Jimmy looks like he's battling for grip out there now.
That's right. Well, the slick tyres that have been run on the car have given some great performances, the qualifiers and the racing tyres for the dry. But he's just having a lot of trouble at the moment keeping up any kind of speed in these faster turns.
Peter Brock right on the tail of Jim Richards in this corner, and that's John Bowe parked right behind them. So he's done a good job to recover.
Jimmy's actually went to a slightly different setup than George for this wet weather stint, and it's looking like George now is catching Jim, so maybe the choice he made isn't quite right.
No. Johnson, the leader. In 2nd place, Tony Longhurst. And Colin Bond through to 3rd. This is the scrap for 4th between John Bowe and Peter Brock. And John Bowe has the inside running now for the next turn. And Bowe will be angry about copping one for his trouble in the first couple of corners. And he'll be pretty keen to make amends.
Oh, he's back to 4th spot. And pulling away now from Peter Brock, and we'll move on to attack Colin Bond in the next couple of laps. Oh, Alan Moffat in the sand.
Well and truly beached. Well, that is a shame. The ANZ Ford Sierra off, must be way down on the back part of the circuit. Off the end of the hill down there.
Yes, when you see somebody in a sand trap here, you automatically look at the end of that long downhill straight, but that's not where he is. So he's over the back of the circuit somewhere. Moffat, bad luck. Bond and Bowe. Brock in behind them, down that big hill we were just talking about. If you go straight ahead there, you end up to your neck in sand like an ostrich.
4.1 seconds the gap, Johnson to Longhurst. And Tony, if anything, is now starting to just make a 10th here and there. You can probably already see or sense there's a little bit of sunshine out there at the moment. If that's the case, these guys are on full wets. There'll already be a couple of fairly dryish grooves appearing on the road, as you can well see there. And that'll start to make life difficult, and some of the drivers may have to start searching for moisture in order to keep these tyres cool. A wet weather tyre with the full grooves in it, like they've got on at the moment, is a much softer compound of rubber than is normally used for the dry conditions, and so those tyres will heat up very quickly and overheat to the point where they start to get dangerous and slippery and hard to control.
Touring car leader Dick Johnson from Queensland, the top banana. 4-time winner in the past of the Touring Car Championship, and of course winner of the race accident shortened James Hardy 1000 1981. Second last year in the Tooheys 1000, and currently leading on 40 points in the Shell Championship for 1989 rather.
4.8 seconds Johnson to Longhurst, and the scrap that's really developing would appear to be for third now, because John Bowe has cleared Peter Brock and he's right on the hammer of Colin Bond, so Bowe would be the charger in this field. Johnson
moving up to lap a couple of the slower cars, including Chris Lambden, who got caught up in that tangle going into the first corner.
Jeffrey Full in the Toyota Corolla, car owned by an old motocrosser, Michael Adcock. who's having a run in touring car racing this year, which is great to see.
Dick Johnson leads the 4th round of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship at Wanneroo. Tony Longhurst is in 2nd place, Colin Bond 3rd, John Bowe in 4th place, followed by Peter Brock.
Situation has changed now in 3rd position, and John Bowe moves up to 3rd. Colin Bond drops back to 4th. Welcome back to round 4 of the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship, and I think that at the moment we're looking at another Dick Johnson runaway, because he's still got around about a 4.8 second lead over Tony Longhurst. Conditions drying slightly here at the moment. John Bowe, the charger in the field, he's got to try and do something about an enormous gap back, or in front, in fact, to Tony Longhurst, and I'll check that for you. Behind Colin Bond in 4th, we've got Peter Brock, and both the Nissans, Fury and Richards, having a scrap at the moment, and George Fury now getting the upper hand. So this is 4th place in the race. There's Bond. Brock giving away around about 2 seconds to Colin Bond. Just saw a glimpse of him there in the background. Let's double check that gap again from Johnson to Longhurst, and that's now 5.4 seconds. So Johnson, if anything, making a little bit of ground in that last lap. Dick Johnson now at the bottom end of the circuit, which is where I suspect Alan Moffat ran off. If you've just joined us, the ANZ Ford Sierra was out in the sand trap. In fact, it was down there, as I understand. So it's a shame that Moffat's missing from the equation. Indeed, a shame that we're missing Andrew Madecki and Glenn Seaton this weekend, whose luck turned very sour round 3 of the championship a few weeks back at Lakeside in Queensland.
Not to mention Murray Carter and the Lusty brothers as well.
Yeah.
But Johnson continues to carry all before him in the '89 championship. Wet or dry, it doesn't seem to make any difference.
I tell you, the drive of the race so far, Gary, is definitely John Bowe. 2.3 seconds now from Longhurst to Bowe, and Bowe is really starting to close the gap. And there's nothing wrong with the way this man's throwing the car around either. Johnson is working very hard, and he's got the car working well. And I think the big disappointment after a good showing in the first lap is Jim Richards, who has just dropped back through the field drastically.
Then, yeah.
Neville Crichton's gone by him now. So the man that carries the Dulux Auto Colour race cam is certainly not on form at the moment.
Bathurst winner Tony Longhurst on screen, 2nd place in the race at the moment, but he's going to have to fight pretty hard very shortly, because John Bowe's closing rapidly.
This gets to a difficult stage in the race now, Neil, where some parts of the track are very wet and others are dry, so the guys have got to be very conscious of that. Easy to make a mistake at these sorts of times, isn't it?
Well, I think the thing that's probably going through the drivers' heads now is they want to squeeze a bit more boot into it. They want to try a bit harder and drop their lap times. And then, as you say, all of a sudden, I guess there's the temptation to overcommit unless you've really got that sensitivity at the end of your toes and at the end of your fingertips. So Longhurst now will be getting glimpses of John Bowe in the rear vision mirror. You just had a glimpse of him there in the background. There he is. And he's pulled away slightly from Colin Bond, and then that's Peter Brock.
Gerald Kay in the Jag Parts Commodore, just been lapped by Brock.
And then it's a fairly healthy gap from Brock way back to George Fury. That's in the order of around about 15 odd seconds at the moment, and Fury's under some pressure. There's race cam with Peter Brock. Might get a chance to have a look at some of the race cam shots. You'll see how busy these guys are in these conditions. It's sort of turn in and then counter correct and then turn in and correct again. It's really delicate stuff, Mark.
This, you see Peter there, he's very, very smooth, isn't he? It doesn't matter what he does, the guy's very good.
If anything, these conditions probably demand even more finesse than you have to generate in the dry. Brock glancing across to his pit board at the moment. His last time showed a 67.7, and he's 3.52 seconds behind his nearest rival.
Chris Lambden's Commodore, which was involved in that incident the first corner, has now pulled out, clutch problem. And one of the local entries in the race, Ian Love's been black flagged.
Notice Peter looked to me like he He short-shifted the engine, then went to a higher gear than the immediate change-up. It looked like he went from second straight to fourth. And he's just stroking the car around at the moment, not trying to generate great wads of horsepower at the rear of the car. I didn't see it that cleanly, but that's what it looked like, Mark.
Yeah, sometimes I think, Neil, you always use a gear up at certain corners in the wet, just so that they don't have that immense horsepower as soon as you get on the throttle.
Longhurst still being chased by Bow. Definitely a drier line appearing in a couple of places in the circuit at the moment.
Bondi's done well, hasn't he? He's sort of really come with John. They're both closing on Tony.
Found a bit of horsepower the last couple of weeks, Colin Bond, that he didn't have in the early rounds this season.
As Colin was saying, he's went back to the English Zytec engine management system in contrast to what he has been using, and that seems to have made some difference.
Back on the pit straight, literally about half a lap behind these guys. There's now a bit of a scrap developing between the two Nissans. And Brad Jones in the Sierra and Neville Crichton in the second of the Benson and Hedges team cars. So still the order: Dick Johnson from Tony Longhurst, John Bow in third place. Then fourth place is Colin Bond, fifth place Peter Brock. Now John Bow makes a run in the wetter part of the track. You can see the plume coming out from underneath his car. That means that he's got to be extra sensitive and careful as he makes the run under brake. So for the moment, he's got to tag along behind Tony, but he's going to be pretty impatient and not hang about. Now John Bow very well positioned as he goes to the end of the pit straight, turns in and just squeezes through. And the Shell cars are now 1 and 2, as has been the case on many a touring car championship race in the last couple of years.
This is the most difficult thing about this time in the race, is if you need to pass guys, you have to get off the dry line to be able to pass them, and that then becomes very hard.
All of a sudden then your bravery on the dry line has to be rethought pretty quickly. So still Bond in fourth, Brock in fifth. And then a bit of a scrap developing amongst the Nissans and some of the other Sierras. Now, can John Bow catch Dick Johnson? That's the big question. To check the placings for you on the Caltex race score. And Dick Johnson, the race leader, car number 17. In second place, his teammate John Bow, car 18. Now relegated back to third in 25, Tony Longhurst. Position 4, car 4, Colin Bond. And rounding out the top 5, Peter Brock in the 05 Mobile Sierra.
Dulux Autocolour Race Cam coming to you from Wanneroo in Perth, fourth round of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. We're on lap 21, so we're coming up on about half distance in this race. And this, of course, is Jim Richards in the number 2 Nissan Skyline. Made a great start, was in second early, but has now dropped back to 9th position. Uncharacteristic drive from Jim. What do you think is the problem, Mark Scaife?
I really don't know, Gary. I know that Jimmy did change some things on the car before the race, and looking to me now, it hasn't worked. He went softer in springs all the way around the car, and it's not handling overly well now.
Yes, I spoke to him during the warm-up this morning on our race cam. Again, Autocolour pictures.
We need to see him in some of these turns and see what he's actually doing, whether he's working hard to keep his car on the island. This next right-hander that he's approaching, Mark's pretty hairy stuff. You did some testing here earlier in the week. Take us around and talk us through a lap.
This part of the track here, Noel, we're just going straight past pit straight. You get to only fourth gear along here, but it's revving fairly hard. Under brakes here now, and the car looks pretty smooth. It's not doing too much wrong. Jimmy's balancing the car very well, isn't he?
He's doing a lot of sliding.
Coming out of there, through this little kinks all flat. I don't know what it'd be like in the wet, but it's a very difficult part of the circuit. Around to the left here is a very important corner, because you've got to get this one right to be able to get the next right-hand corner that Jimmy's approaching now. And this is now very fast. As you can see, Jimmy again very sideways and battling to hold the car on the road there. This is another difficult part of the circuit there, Neil, because you're under brakes very hard and going downhill. And it's a place where you can lock a brake very easily. Coming out of there now and back up onto the main straight and just staying on the road. This is now the fastest part of the track and very hard on brakes at this point.
It's going pretty quick too, isn't it, even in the wet?
It surely is. As you can see, George is just up ahead, and we're back onto pit straight again now.
Well, he spends a fair bit of time on that lap with opposite lock, particularly in these conditions. Certainly must be something that's not to his liking in the way of tyre compounds or suspension settings or whatever. But there we have it. Jim Richards back in 9th place at the moment, car number 2, and chasing his teammate George Fury. There's Colin Bond, who's gone to 3rd place now and moved Tony Longhurst back to 4th. So the order: Dick Johnson, John Bowe, Colin Bond, Tony Longhurst, and Longhurst is beginning to fall back into the clutches of Peter Brock, and there he was in the background.
And we're at the half race distance now.
So that suggests that Tony's tyres are not enjoying these conditions as much, as it begins to slightly dry in a couple of places.
Yes, I mean, there's a few drivers out there now probably hoping it would rain again.
Well, it's at that horrible in-between point at the moment where it would only be a very brave man that would duck in for slicks. You can't really afford to dump 30 or 40 seconds that it takes to come in and do that at the moment. Then again, if it gets much drier, do you balance that off against the fact that you might need to do that to make the speed on the slick tyres in the drier conditions? Here's Brock, race camp, chasing Tony Longhurst. You can see that PB spending a fair bit of time with the wheel pointing the other way too, Mark.
Yeah, he seems to actually be able to turn the car in a little bit better than our Skyline at the moment, and that would tend to suggest that our car is probably losing a little bit of grip.
Peter's really beginning to close that gap now on Longhurst. This is the scrap for 4th and 5th. We're a little past halfway of round 4 of this Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship race from Wanneroo in Western Australia. She's not sunny WA this afternoon. It's been beautiful here all week. And I guess, if anything, it's caught a few of these fellas unprepared, Mark. They've had good conditions to work in and set their cars up, and now it's nothing like that at all. Peter Brock, 44 years of age, lives in Melbourne. The Rouse Ford Sierra under his backside at the moment, a 3-time Australian touring car champion, the absolute master of the mountain with 9 Bathurst wins, and he's equalled that down in Victoria at Sandown, where they love him. And he's currently 4th in the championship with 20 points to his credit. And if he can get this bloke in front of him at the moment, the extra points will come in very handy in his pursuit of the 2 Shell cars and the title. The order again: Dick Johnson, John Bowe in 3rd place, Colin Bond in 4th place, Tony Longhurst, and only just at the moment from Peter Brock. Further back behind him in 6th is Neville Crichton. 7th, Brad Jones, car 105. 8th position, George Fury. In 9th position, it's Jim Richards. And then rounding out the top 10 on the road, at least, Tim Slako, 96. But we understand he's dumped a minute for jumping the start. And that'll move Alf Barbagello up 1 position.
There's Slako and Barbagello, the local hopes. Haven't been seeing a good effect here today, but they're going to be running most of the remaining rounds of the Touring Car Championship, so maybe they can develop something out of the Commodores yet.
Look at the amount of sludge on the screen and the rubbish that's being thrown up by Tony's car all the time. Peter's just inching in there. He's just breaking that 15th later and just getting the power on a fraction earlier, and it's just getting him in there centimetre by centimetre at the moment. He's trying to squeeze some power down. He saw a huge gap there. It just turned into wheel spin and opposite lock, but now he's got the position that he probably wants, and he could make a lunge down here at the bottom as he comes down to the right-hander and makes it, in fact, before he even gets that far. So Peter Brock now moves to 3rd place. Valuable points for him in the championship.
Brock closing rapidly.
4th place, I should say. Oh,
Longhurst gone in for tyre change, betcha. Here goes Brock. He's going past car 33, the little Corolla, driven by the local street sedan driver, Tony Fogliani, who's the guest star for the Toyota team here this weekend at Wanneroo.
It looks like just a tyre stop for Longhurst. Can't imagine that...
Jim Richards in the pits as well.
And Chris Lambden.
Richards back out on the track. That was a lightning stop.
Longhurst has been in now for about 25 seconds.
A fairly lengthy stop under the circumstances, and a bit slow to get moving too. Now he's away. Well, he's dropped a number of very valuable spots. In fact, he's back on the track behind Neville Crichton and Brad Jones.
So that puts him into 8th position.
Got some ground to make up.
Well, what do you think, Mark? They're playing the percentage game, taking the gamble. Someone's got to do it. Is it worth trying for at this stage, do you think?
I think it's worth going back to slicks now, or maybe they went for intermediates. It's very hard at this point because it's the only advantage you've got is if you've got two cars. I think George hasn't come in yet in our team, but Jimmy has. And I think now Fred will be looking at what times each car is doing and see from there.
There's Tim Slako in that shocking pink and black entry from WA. John Bow,
second Nissan,
not far from him. In fact, Bow's closing rapidly on Dick Johnson.
So both the Nissans have now been in and out of the pits. We can only guess that they've maybe gone for an intermediate, which is essentially a dry weather race tyre with grooves in it just to channel some of the water away. And it means if the track does completely dry, that it works pretty much like a slick tyre mark.
Yes, it's actually the intermediate tyre is the same compound as you said, Neil, but it's got grooves just to try and channel some of the water out at certain points in the circuit, as we said before, that is a little bit wetter than others.
Slako sees his chance to get some television exposure, so he's hooking onto the tail of John Bow, going to hang there as long as he can.
Top marks to the Barbagello team, and they've come out with two new cars this weekend, and they're very, very well prepared and turned out.
I understand that Alan Grice has been over here doing quite a bit of testing in these cars.
Yes, I understand, and from what I've learned, he's been going pretty quickly as well, so that's encouraging for Holden fans. And he's, well, we understand that he's a minute away from the mark at the moment after jumping the start, but according to our lap scoring, he's shown at the present time in, well, in 8th place with all the rearrangements with pit stops.
Really is a credit to these guys with these Commodores, with West Racing and Alf Barbagello. The preparation of those cars is really, really good. It's a credit to them for sure.
Difficult to build and develop a race car like this far away from the centre of motor racing action, which is in the eastern states. Johnson and Bow go through the picture, followed by Tim Slako a lap down, of course. But as I said, he and Alf Barbagello intend to run the next several rounds of the championship. Malala, Sandown, Oran Park. They won't be at Winton, but then, of course, their big aim is Bathurst, where they believe these cars will be strong enough to run all day, as the Commodores have proven in the past.
Yes, and they've picked up a bit of backing from a variety of people, including Asander as their major sponsor, which pleases them. So Dick Johnson, the comfortable race leader at the moment on the Caltex race score from his teammate John Bow. In 3rd place now, Colin Bond in car number 4. Behind him, car 5, Peter Brock. And moving into the top 5 now, car number 20, Neville Crichton from New Zealand. You see there's quite a dry, distinct line there now on the right rear. The car's generating heat and leaning on that part of the car.
Bowie's making that Sierra fairly wide, isn't he?
So this scrap is well and truly on for 4th place at the moment, with Dick Johnson the leader, Colin Bond in 2nd, Peter Brock in 3rd, John Bow in 4th, Tony Longhurst now to 5th, Brad Jones behind in 6th, then Neville Crichton 7th. And we also have to bear in mind that the Nissans could well be threading their way back through the pack.
That's right. I think now that the dry weather tyres have been put on, the Yokohamas that we use will be back into the sort of league that we need to be.
This is an almighty scrap. These two are absolutely at it at the moment. There's nothing between them. Plenty of garbage on the road right at the crest of that hill, and you'll notice this very dry line on the outside there. See it there on the right rear of the car? They're using that, particularly the blokes with slick tyres at the moment, to get some bite, get some grip, fire the cars out of the corner and generate some higher speeds down the straights and use the full rev band, whereas we saw, for example, Peter Brock before short changing, grabbing a higher gear to try and stop the wheel spin.
Looks like Longhurst's got the wherewithal to get by here if he could get a clear run, but John Bow's got very broad elbows.
And the thing here is that if they're both on slicks, we know John is, but I couldn't see clearly enough what sort of tyres Tony went on, but I can only imagine they were slicks. But he's had a few laps to get some warmth in them, whereas JB's working with a cold case at the moment. Actually, that's the thing to do on a Sunday afternoon, isn't it?
Yes, switch on the 7 Sport and get a cold case. Johnson leads still from Bond and Brock. This is the battle for 4th and 5th positions. And it is a battle. Look at Longhurst all over the tail of Bow's car, up over the top of the hill.
This is very hard in these conditions now, fellas, because you don't have to make a very, very big mistake at all to be offline and then get into the wet section of the circuit. And as you can see, that's why Tony's having so much trouble getting past.
Yeah, it's a brave lad who starts to carry all that speed with him in the slippery stuff. And then you find yourself winding the wheel like the old school bus driver, and there's nothing much happening.
Outside of the top 5 at the moment, Brad Jones in 6th spot in the second of the mobile cars, followed by Neville Crichton. Then Tim Slaker, the first of the Commodores, in 8th spot. Jim Richards in 9th, and rounding out the top 10, George Fury in the second of the Nissans.
Before John Bow interrupted the flow and made the pit stop, I was going to make comment of the fact that the Jones drive's been very good. He started way back in about 9th or 10th in this pack in the early laps, just slithering around in the wet, minding his own business, and gradually just built his speed up, threaded his way through the cars, and his tyres are in pretty good shape, and he's not too far away from the guns at the moment.
Tell you what, Bow and Longhurst are closing very rapidly on Brock and Colin Bond. We're going to have a 4-way go here in a moment.
See, these two blokes here have taken the brave pills and gone for slicks early in the day, and the 3 in front are still on wets. Now, if it really rains, these blokes are going to be all at sea. So don't, whatever you do, leave the set at the moment, because you could see some fun and games. Now Tony Longhurst moves to the inside, and John Bow takes the ground back off him in pretty aggressive driving from both these guys. This is the scrap for 4th and 5th. They're chasing Peter Brock. He's in 3rd. He was in 3rd, because there goes John Bow. So that's the speed difference between slicks and wets at the moment. And one of our assistants in the commentary box has quite rightly pointed out that the sky is very black out there at the moment, and this minor scrap, or scrap for the minor placings, certainly not a minor scrap at all, is sensational. So you've got Bond here in 2nd place, Bow in 3rd, Dick Johnson still struggling out in front there. We've got Longhurst lurking in amongst them, and Peter Brock just away from those guys at the moment.
Jimmy Richards is catching a lot of them, actually, I think.
Richards is, according to the computer, still back in the order at the moment. Depends on how much time they spent in the pits. Well, can Dick Johnson make the finish on the tyres that he's on? Because if he can't, then this guy here is looking pretty good. Now the wipers are back on the Bow car. Is that because of the spray from other cars, or is there
a few spots of rain starting to fall again?
Well,
and as you said, the big black clouds are moving in.
There's Dick. And we understand there's 5 minutes to go. Let's have a look at the top 5. Dick Johnson now from John Bow, Tony Longhurst in 3rd, then Colin Bond in 4th, and Peter Brock in 5th. Do not miss the end of this race. We're back in a moment.
Here at Wanneroo, Dick Johnson into the pits for a tyre change to slick tyres. That means he's going to forego the lead with laps running out in this race. We've covered 40-plus laps. There's only about 3 minutes of racing left.
Unbelievable turn of events. Dick was probably hanging out just in case there was going to be another spot of rain, and there still could be before the checkered flag comes out. He's gone to slick tyres. That means that Bow inherits the lead. 25 odd seconds as they push away.
Longhurst in 2nd place. Bond is 3rd. Brock's in 4th place, and Dick rejoins the race in 5th spot behind Peter Brock.
Incredible. And this is the scrap. This is the bolt to the flag. It would seem to me as though there's a bit of rain falling out there again. It's very, very black on the horizon. Bow clinging by the barest of margins in the closing minutes of the race, round 4. Tony Longhurst right behind. Colin Bond has shot up into proceedings here as well. So the order, let's just get this clarified. It's Bow, then Longhurst in 2nd, Colin Bond in 3rd, Peter Brock in 4th, with Dick Johnson closing, and he's right on his hammer now as they go down the pit straight. Behind Johnson is Brad Jones, and behind Brad Jones is Neville Crichton. And this is the scrap for 1st and 2nd. In fact, it's on all over the place here at the moment.
Bow really battling to try and keep the shell flag flying here in this championship.
And behind these guys, Bond in 3rd and defending from Johnson, who's now gone through to 4th, passing Peter Brock. There's Brad Jones and Neville Crichton having a lap put on them now with about 60 seconds, we understand,
So this is probably their last lap.
Goodness gracious.
Longhurst has lost the trail there for a moment, and I don't think he's going to recover it. He was sitting right on Bauer.
They're on their last lap, we understand it. It's still on for the minor placings. Dick Johnson has gone through now and cleared away from Peter Brock and Colin Bond. So Johnson has moved to third. Brock has gone to fourth, and Bondy's gone back to fifth.
Been a great drive by John Bauer today. He's really come through the field very hard. He's been very aggressive.
Well, incredible stuff. Look at this car balking. Can John Bauer hang on with half a lap to go? Bauer from Longhurst. Dick Johnson blasting back through the field in his last couple of laps to third. And then behind him, Colin Bond. No, Peter Brock, I think, in fourth. And then Colin Bond. The checkered flag being readied as they come through this final right-hander. And out comes the flag. And John Bauer is the winner at round 4. Tony Longhurst in second. A tremendous drive from Bauer. Well judged. A big, big gap. Let's see what happens to the minor placings here. It's going to be Johnson in third. There he is. It'll be the best part of 30-odd seconds back to him, if not more. So it's Johnson in third place. Whew. A lap scorer's nightmare. Thanks to David Hassel for his help here today as well. Fourth placing will go to Peter Brock. Only just fifth placing will be Colin Bond. Sixth placing will be Brad Jones. Seventh placing will be Neville Crichton. Let's check them for you on the Caltex race score in the top 3. John Bauer, Tony Longhurst and Dick Johnson. A tremendous drive from John Bauer. Brilliant stuff. And that really makes the championship interesting in terms of points, because the two Shell team cars were leading going into this fourth round. But now the order's been reversed slightly, with Bauer picking up the points today. We'll have to do some quick calculations. Johnson, no doubt, will still be in the lead of the championship, but Bauer will have closed up considerably. Disappointment for Jim Richards. And that guy can't believe his bad luck. He thought he'd hang around. He thought he'd stay with the wet tyres. But it didn't work out. And look at this. Up go the umbrellas now. 30 seconds after the checkered flag has come out, and it is bucketing out there again. Now, the point score, as I understand it, quick calculation, John Bauer is now the series leader with 58 points, and Dick Johnson in second with 52 points. And a delighted John Bauer. Can't believe his luck. Tremendous drive from the Tasmanian, the former Australian driving champion. Runner-up in last year's series, and there's the runner-up in today's race, Tony Longhurst.
Bauer looks fairly tired there, Neil, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's worked very hard. He's had to wrestle a slippery car for just on an hour. Tremendous drive from Johnson to even scramble back into third and make the top 3 in those last 2 laps. He was able to get by Bond and Brock. We'll give you the top 5 once again. So it was Bauer the winner, Longhurst in second, Johnson in third, Brock in fourth, then followed by Colin Bond, then Brad Jones, and then Neville Crichton. Tremendous stuff. Okay, let's go and hear what John Bauer's got to say. We'll go down to Gary Wilkinson.
Well, John Bauer, you took a big gamble, and as it turned out, it's about to pour. It is pouring rain again. It's paid off for you.
Mate, the gods were with me. I mean, the decision to stop was Neil Lowe's, our crew chief, and the guys did a fantastic job to get me in and out of the pits. And I mean, it paid off, didn't it?
Strictly speaking, did you have to come in and change the slicks? Were the other tyres just, you know...
Just really had it, you know, like the track dries out and the soft rubber on the wet tyres just melts, and it was just sliding around like I was 5 or 6 seconds a lap quicker on slicks. So.
And Dick took the gamble and tried to stay out on the wets.
He did, yeah, and I thought half would have paid off, but it didn't. I was lucky, so...
This belongs to you. You better put it on. You've now got 2 wins out of 4 rounds in the championship.
John from Shell Ultra. Congratulations, my boy.
Thanks, Bernard.
And you are now the leader in the championship from Dick by 6 points. It's a close battle between the pair of you.
Before, haven't I?
It was an unusual race.
It was very, very tough. Very, very tough. I had to employ some Formula V tactics on Tony, which I don't like doing, but a win's a win.
Well, Tony Longhurst here. Let's get his opinion. What do you say?
No, it was a great race. John carved me up a couple of times, but you know, that's racing. Perhaps if I was ahead of him, and I thought I was actually running third, perhaps I should have done a few more dashboards on those last couple of laps, and you never know.
You might have been a bit lucky too to survive all that stuff at the first corner the first time round.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. I thought we might end up picking up a couple more positions, but John came through the field very well, and it was a good race. I hope it was good on TV.
It was great on TV. Congratulations. Second place. The championship is probably still just beyond your reach, but you're getting there.
These shell cars are just so quick, but I must thank my team and my sponsors.
Congratulations to John Bower coming in first today, Tony Longhurst second, Dick Johnson third. The Shell boys running 1-2 in the championship. John Bower the leader. Hope you can join us round 5 at Malala next Sunday.